high-profile sexual harassment cases bearing startling similarities. Two men in positions of power, abusing their authority, allegedly forcing themselves on the women who worked with them. Tehelka founder Tarun Tejpal allegedly accosted a junior colleague his daughter's age and raped her in a hotel elevator in Goa during an office event. When the case was brought to light, Tejpal allegedly used all his clout to brush the matter under the carpet. 5 years later, when the charges are finally being framed, the media has been gagged and barred from reporting the trial. On the very same day, Arunabh Kumar, founder of content development company The Viral Fever, has stepped down as the CEO over accusations of sexual harassment from multiple women from his own organization.
Time and again we see instances of women facing sexual harassment and mental harassment at workplaces in the country. So the question remains, how far women have to face such instances of sexual harassment and workplace harassment.
But are these incidents isolated cases? We asked women whether sexual harassment at workplace continues to thrive.
Even for a woman or a man, I mean, to feel safe in a particular entity is important.
It is important to every woman to understand how it is more important to self-defend instead of, relying on other people.
It is very important to take care of the safety of a woman because sometimes a workload demands stay back or some commitment. So that time she need to be very, commitment from company that she is safe so that she can give her 110% towards her work.
Organization higher hierarchy which is there, so the VIP or the HR is there. They should certainly go in concern with them.
Despite stronger laws, despite greater accountability, instances after instances are raising serious questions about just how safe offices are for women. Mirror Now report.
We are watching the urban debate on Mirror Now. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Here's the question we're asking. Are our workplaces safe for women? Despite the fact that these two very high-profile cases have brought to the forefront one more time the fact that we have very clear rules about sexual harassment in the workplace. How many offices in our country actually have an internals complaint committee set up? How many employees know what to do if they face a problem? Who do they complain to? How many managers know how to handle a complaint that comes to them? And how many women are truly safe in the workplace right now? Do you feel as a woman who goes to work that you will be supported by your office if you complain about sexual harassment? Do you grin and bear it? Do you put up with it? And in a lot of cases, we understand women just quit and move to another office when they're made to feel uncomfortable in their places of work. How much longer will women have to put up with this? And let me also point out in this case that sexual harassment and the rules about sexual harassment are gender neutral, which means that men who are being made to feel uncomfortable can and should also complain about sexual harassment. The question we're asking this evening on the urban debate, are workplaces safe for women in India? Has anything changed in the last few years? Our phone lines are open for our audience. We're going to put in calls from the beginning of the show because I want to know what you think. But joining me on the panel this evening, Indrani Malkani is the Managing Trustee of the Citizens Action Network. Flavia Agnes is the Director of Majlis, the Centre for Women. She is a very strong voice. Flavia has been fighting for women for several decades here. Swapnil Kothari is a senior lawyer. Kumar Jahgirdar is a men's rights activist. Krishnaswamy is a social activist and an entrepreneur. Gogo Rajan is a partner at Headhunters India. And Kashyap Swaroop is a stand-up comedian. I like having stand-up comedians on the show because we've realized very often they're the most honest opinion of what's happening in society these days. Also, Kashyap was working in Bollywood as a writer. He runs his own company, so he brings in also a very specific view of someone who works with young people. I welcome all of you to the show. I want opening statements from each one. I'm going to start with Flavia Agnes. Flavia Agnes, good evening. Do you believe women are any safer today in their workplaces than they were maybe 4 or 5 years ago?
I don't think women are any safer than they were 5 years ago for many reasons. Of course, there's a law in place, but most of the people are not aware of the laws. Women do not know what is to be done. the important ingredient of this act is to raise awareness, make people aware that where should they go, who is the person responsible, what kind of complaints can be brought in, what is the work code ethics that everybody should follow, right from the top boss lowest to the peon in the office. This is not happening. Awareness is not happening. So when a case comes up, the company tries to cover up and they put a lid on it and pretend that it doesn't exist. But now, as more and more cases are coming out, it becomes very obvious that the companies have to do something much more proactive to make this action preventable, because it is possible to prevent. Men think it is their birthright, but if you guide them and say this will not be tolerated, it will affect your work, it will affect your career, I think there will be some restraint on it, but that's not happening as of today.
It's not happening as of today. Let me bring in other voices. Gogo Rajan, partner, Headhunters India. Are you seeing a difference in the comfort levels of women in management, in offices? Is there any sort of change, in women being employed right now?
Well, I mean, well, as far as I'm concerned, we do deal with different organizations which are spread across various verticals. And there have been a few cases we have heard about, but we find the management quite keen on trying to make sure that such incidents are not only prevented, but actions are taken against people who have been involved. Not too many cases come up as far as I am concerned, but because people are aware, even the social media is playing a very big role in terms of making sure that it's a deterrent, because people know that the moment such things happen, it's going to gain publicity it just goes viral. So to that extent, I think it's certainly a cause for concern that is continuing to happen in spite of.
Right, Kashyap, I want to bring you in here. Virality of sexual harassment, I think, is not really true, because what is it? 1 in 100, maybe 1 in 500 cases that actually attains a certain amount of virality, and that's also because of perhaps the semi-celebrity status of the perpetrator, because the person being accused is famous for whatever reason. But there are so many cases that go unnoticed, unreported, or perhaps even after reported, there's very little cognizance that's taken.
Yeah, I think bad rep should never be like a deterrent. It shouldn't be the only deterrent. The main deterrent, I feel, should be the fact that it's creating a very unhealthy workspace where ultimately the productivity of the female employees will be low. If you're going to be treated like an object when you go to work, if you're going to be treated as if you're the one to blame in case an incident does occur, it's just a very bad space to be in. If I was being treated that way at my workplace, I know for a fact that I wouldn't give it my 100%. And so even when there's, let's say, a sex ratio of 1:4, 1:5 when it comes to an average workplace in India, and women do have as much to offer as men in a workplace. In fact, especially in the advertising industry where I come from, the female perspective is severely lacking. So when you bring the female perspective and ultimately you water it down just because you can't be decent, I think that's not going to really, help the cause at all. The cause of just creating better.
What's the status in the advertising industry? How often have you come across cases where women have sort of, put up with it?
I'm going to cite a personal example, and if the person who's to blame is watching, then I'm going to be kind of thawing our relationship, unfortunately. The thing is, there's massive sexism to start with. Women are still treated as objects in advertising. In fact, that mindset hasn't changed significantly, especially because the people at the very top have grown up seeing that kind of mindset, and it's a trickle-down effect. When you're at the top and you're showing a lack of empathy to your colleague, it's something that just kind of waters down. And I've noticed that people who are lower-level employees look at their superiors and they expect them to set an example that is positive. If the example is negative, then they will act in the same manner. And this is something that I've seen from very close quarters. Family members, my entire family comes from the film industry. Family members have witnessed and been subject to similar behavior as recently as a couple of months ago. My mom was shooting something in Chennai, and one of the technicians on the set mistreated several women, in fact, including kids. And when it came to light, the problem was he was such a fine technician that he was irreplaceable. So that becomes a bit of a problem, because when you're in a position of power, there's nothing that can be done.
Indrani?
Well, I totally agree with what has just been said. I would like to bring in one point here, that there seems to be, from the corporate sector and companies, because since we are talking about sexual harassment at workplace, a denial of the actual reality. Because it is not true that the cases are being tackled and that there are minimal cases. Not at all. In fact, I am amazed as to the lack of understanding of the corporate world, and I don't mean to single out anybody, but it is cutting across. And this very fine act which has come in and the rules are just being taken for granted. So therefore, to say that corporates are doing what they are supposed to do in this aspect is not true. Women have become conditioned to a great extent as if it is expected that they will be harassed.
Right, you know, I want to go back
to something which is very, very unfortunate.
I want to go back to what Kashyap said, and I'll bring in the rest of the panel at this point. Tara, if you want to come in. The fact that a lot of sectors traditionally have male management, so the lead of the organization, sometimes smaller organizations. Let's look at the Tehelka case with Tarun Tejpal. Let's look at Arunabh Kumar as well. When the lead of the organization is male, he becomes indispensable to the rest of the organization functioning, whereas the younger person, invariably the subordinate or the younger person who's filing the complaint, is amply dispensable and easily replaceable. So the organization tends to lean towards protecting their key person vis-a-vis protecting the person who seems to be a bit of a troublemaker in this case by filing the complaint. Tara, a lot of times it's because we don't have enough women in management.
Absolutely, you nailed it. Sexual harassment, and indeed many other forms of harassment, are more about a display of power rather than anything else, an abuse of power, really. So when you have a person in authority with disproportionate power, and in India today we have not even 10% of the overall management. Anybody in I use this word loosely, anyone in a managerial position, a supervisor in an informal industry. The Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 2013 broadened the Vishaka guidelines to apply to both the formal and informal sector. So if you include both sectors, the formal sector as it is really pathetic with respect to representation of women in roles of authority. If you look at the informal sector, construction workers, agricultural workers, the workers are typically women, and the supervisor is typically male. So they have a disproportionate amount of power over the workers. Now, when they wield that power, it's always easy to dispense with the one that is, quote, lower skilled, at a lower rung in the organization, less paid, more easily dispensable. So it's a little ironic when the statute doesn't lean heavily in favor of the one without power. That really should be the onus on the law. Law should protect the weakest, right? That's the purpose of law.
You know,
so we need to
I want to
make it
bring
easy.
in Kumar Jahgirdar before we bring in Swapnil Kothari. Kumar Jahgirdar brings in a very different point of view on this panel, and it's a point of view we must hear out. This is a show where we respect all opinions, and I want the audience to hear what Kumar has to say. Kumar is a men's rights activist. We don't see too many of those. Kumar, what is your point of view right now on the rules about sexual harassment in the workplace? Do you believe that women are safer today than they were maybe 4 years ago before these regulations came out?
See, victims are not just women, even men are also victims of harassment at workplace. So it is wrong to say that women protection is not taken care properly. There are so many men, who are also suffering harassment at workplace, especially from superior bosses who happen to be women. Asking for sexual favors, or getting if suppose a superior boss happens to be a man, the appraiser prefer this thing, if suppose they give a negative appraiser, they have to get a false rape case or harassment case, and that person will be transferred and she gets a transfer and he gets suspended. So to take vengeance, this is a very big tool, which is being used especially on the senior bosses. And there is absolutely no punishment, given for fake cases and malicious cases under this thing. And it is always there is a bias against men, that they happen always the perpetrators. It can happen both ways. Surveys have shown that 1 in 4 are men victims. And there is no
what survey is this? What survey? Okay, Kumar Jahgirdar, let me point out a couple of things. One, like I pointed out at the beginning of the show, the sexual harassment regulations are gender neutral, which means both women and men can complain if they're being harassed by a member of the opposite sex, if they're being harassed by a member of the same sex. Even if a man is being harassed by a man, he can still come out and complain. I'm a little concerned about your statistic of 1 in 4 complaints, 1 in 4 victims is a man. Where is the statistic from?
The agreed men have nowhere to go, and there is no procedures that nobody is following. There is no exposure to them. There is no committee where they can go and complain.
No, the committee applies to both.
They got the social stigma. Nobody even listens to their story.
The committee does not apply to both. Committee applies only to women. But however, if there has been a wrongdoing for any individual, that is, I'm talking about men, there are doors open. In every
Indrani, if I'm not mistaken, there are organizations that can choose internally. Your organization can choose internally to make your rules gender neutral.
That is correct.
It's not true that the rules are only for men.
No, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean that. What I meant was, if I may complete, the internal committee.
There should be 100% women's rights activists. So how can men fit in there?
No, that is not at all incorrect. The rules and for the sexual harassment at workplace is meant for women by its very definition. No, by its very definition. The internal committee is for women, but every company...
No, it's not. No, allow me to disagree with you, Indrani Malkani. The internal complaints committee is not for women.
Yes, it is
not for women. It is for sexual harassment. Irrespective of who the victim may be. Swapnil Kothari, I also want to bring in this aspect. If someone feels like Kumar Jahgirdar feels like...
Excuse me, I want to make a correction here.
Yes, Flavia Agnes, please go ahead.
It is for women. It's for women.
It is very clearly this is sexual harassment
for women
of women at workplace.
Yes.
The act is very clear.
Yes.
This act applies only for sexual harassment of women at the workplace.
Correct.
It is very precise and very specific. So the internal committees formed under it would have to look at sexual harassment by women where the woman is a complainant.
Okay.
This does not mean that men who are harassed have no recourse in law at all, and they have no remedy. There are inappropriate behaviors, indecent behaviors at the workplace. There are disciplinary actions that can be taken. It is not the internal complaints committee, but it is the departmental inquiry committee where these complaints by men against women can go.
There is no protection for men here.
Excuse me, can I finish?
Let her finish, please. Let her finish.
When we're talking about sexual harassment at workplace, we are talking about exclusively for women. But I want to give a correction here that if there is a complaint that is known to be false, then action can be taken against the person filing such a complaint.
Absolutely.
So my colleague here on the panel is not correct to say that anybody can file any false case and there is no remedy. That is not correct at all. There is a remedy in law. The law provides for a remedy.
That is correct, what Flavia has just said.
And I want to bring in Swapnil Kothari. Swapnil, for those people who feel that they're not getting the right remedies within their organizations, there's no one to complain to, there's no one to go to. The law is very clear about the fact that they can go out and complain to the police and file an FIR, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. They can go under IPC sections which pertain to sexual, assault or sexual harassment in that case, and you can say an attempt to rape as well, because that is a precursor to that. Because I would perceive that any unwelcome sexual advance, and if it's forced upon a woman, that amounts to an attempt to rape. So IPC would clearly apply here. But now since we are talking about this anti-sexual harassment law for women of 2013, the seed of which was sown, somewhere in the remote corners of the north about Bhavri Devi, who wanted to stop the child marriage and hence was gang raped, and that led to Vishakha's PIL and then the Vishakha guidelines, and then which was superseded by this act. Faith, this apart from this historical background, I think it's very clear that the corporate world seems to be more concerned about income and expenditure and balance sheets, where male CEOs are considered as income and the underlings being women, most of them, or primarily women, are objects of sexual, unwelcome sexual advances, as one of the panelists pointed out. So they are considered as expenditure, so hence dispensable. But having said that, there is ample proof to the fact that, where even there are women CEOs in a few organizations, the reported cases, I do not know about the unreported ones, but I would talk about the reported cases, and the statistics are no different from those where male CEOs are there. So I would not say that this does not mean that the female women in power, the females in power are against the women who complained, but just to say that this is the statistics. But the fact remains that it's a male-dominated society, and its women's rights again are obliterated and obfuscated and led to the back burner. And this act, in fact, there was a statistics that only 30% of the workplaces are forming this internal complaints committee. So that shows that how clear disregard and the brazen disregard there is for this particular act. And
right.
It's the women that need to raise a brouhaha about it at every single time and ensure that firstly that there is an internal complaints committee and then start work.
No, but even with the internal committee, let me also point out that companies will make the internal committees, but there are no meetings held. So it's as good it's only on paper. And that is reality.
So explain to us this, Indrani. If every organization must have an internals committee, should the committee meet only when they receive a complaint, or do they have to meet on a regular basis?
No, they have to meet on a regular basis, because the focus and the thrust of this committee is on prevention first. Awareness, these are the factors. When cases come up, then there are clear guidelines and specific instructions.
How often should the committee meet?
Once a month or once in 2 months at least. Otherwise, how? Because it also says about workshops being held. It talks about awareness for women. Not only women, even men. That is exactly the point I was going to make earlier. That when men don't know what is an appropriate way of dealing with women, and women are also not aware of what is not to be accepted, all of these lead to a very unhealthy and uncomfortable situation for all concerned.
Right.
So therefore, this committee is not just for making inquiries, not at all. In fact, prevention, awareness takes precedence over the problems that may crop up. The idea is to preempt such problems. The idea is to create a society, a comfortable working place for all. So that is why to say that committees have been formed, yes, committees on paper have been formed. I am in so many committees, but I have not, I can tell you, personally, I tell you, when I'm on at least 7 to 8 companies, that we haven't met for 8 to 9 months.
All right, so companies, so you have to check for the people who are watching.
These are very big companies.
You must check if there is an internal complaints committee in your organization, and that committee should meet on a regular basis. That will ensure you that your organization is taking this sort of thing seriously.
Yes.
Tahir is on the phone line from Srinagar. He's just called us. Tahir, go ahead. We can hear you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to tell that in Kashmir, women also face different type of situations in government as well as semi-government organizations. But government never has talked about these issues. There is a proper mechanism to deal with these issues. Whenever there comes any complaint from any woman against any government official or against his officer, no action is taken, and every department tries to play down the issue, and thus they.
You're very right. One of the the biggest things we need to consider, of course, is our massive government organizations and what measures are being taken within government organizations as well. We also have another viewer who's on the phone line. Kanya Purshani is on the phone line from Mumbai. Kanya ji, बताइए आपको क्या कहना है?
मैंने देखा सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट है ना सब जगह पे होता है, चाहे वो प्राइवेट हो चाहे वो गवर्नमेंट की हो
जी।
ये कारण उनको पता है कि ये है ना मजबूरी पे है ना औरत आके और काम करती है, और उनको अपना घर बार चलाना है तो वो लोग है ना यहाँ पे मजबूरी में आके काम करते हैं। मैंने देखा हूँ बहुत सारी कंपनी में जो भी ये कंप्लेंट अगर ये उठाती है या ऊपर ले जाती है, उसमें उसको ले जाने नहीं दिया जाता है, और वो जो कंप्लेंट है ना वो लोग दबा देता है, जो भी कंपनी का बड़ा हो, और उनका ग्रीवेंस सेंस है ना बिल्कुल नहीं मतलब ये करता है कि ये मामला बैठ जाए, क्योंकि उनका कंपनी का नाम बदनाम होता है। तो इसीलिए है ना वो लोग है ना, उनके जो बड़े लोग हैं वो कभी भी है ना ये मैटर को है ना दबा ही देते हैं लोग। ये मेरा रिक्वेस्ट है कि इसके ऊपर है ना कोई कानून कड़क बनना चाहिए, क्योंकि ये जो है ना गवर्नमेंट को खुद आना चाहिए और इसके ऊपर है ना कुछ कानून है ना बनाना चाहिए, और जो गुनहगार है उनको है ना सजा है ना मिलना चाहिए। ये सब इसलिए हो रहा है क्योंकि हमारा कानून नहीं है एकदम कड़क, और इन गुनहगारों को है ना डर नहीं है, तो ये वजह से होता है। So,
ये आपने सही बोला. I want to bring in to Swapnil first. Swapnil, there is a law, of course, and if we consider, for example, the TVF case of Arunabh Kumar, the corporation, the organization came out very clearly, put out a media statement saying this person is obviously lying, these are malicious lies, we are going to track this person down and we're going to make sure that this person is punished, which is symptomatic of the problem. This is what all organizations do. They first accuse the victim of being a liar.
Yes, absolutely, and that's exactly the way they protect their people who are raid bakers in the organization. And it would be a little bit foolhardy for us to think that men need to be taught as to how to deal with women appropriately at workplace. I'm sure most men, 99% of them, know how to do it, but they have a very reckless disregard about all the complaint procedures that are set. And as Indrani pointed out, that if for 9 months people are not meeting, then there's hardly very scant respect in the organization for the women at workplace and their safety and their healthy environment to work in. So why should the men care there? So it's the fault of the organization at the top levels, as you pointed out, that first of all they try to attack the victim and try to ascertain, just as we see in the rape cases where they try to ascertain whether there was actually a rape or whether there was consent. It's an absolute ignominy as far as that aspect is concerned. So what I would appreciate in this regard is that regularly the women need to ensure that the committees meet, that these things are discussed. Men are sensitized about the fact that they need to behave with women appropriately, and if there is a reverse sexual harassment, if at all there is, I do not know of any many cases that I've heard of, or any case for that matter, that has come to my attention in the past 23 years of my practice where a man has been sexually harassed by a woman, then I think it's equally the right to privacy and right to life under 21 applies to the case, and Article 14 as well, where the person can say that, look, I have not been treated equally here. Right. So these are the fundamental rights, and you can approach straight the Supreme Court of India. You don't have to worry about any of these complaint procedures, committees, etc. Don't go under this act at all. Just go straight to the Supreme Court and try to get that done by the enlightened minds of this country.
Kashyap, the other set of people I always worry about are people on sets of films. People who are normally in the entertainment industry. Everybody's a freelancer. They come in as writers for one particular project. They come in as assistant directors for one particular project, and most often projects are run by men, and there's no ICC, there's no one to go to at that point because you're not part of an official organization. How often have you come across situations where women are made uncomfortable in these spaces?
Like I said, I've been hearing of nightmare stories from close quarters. My sister was doing a shoot in Delhi recently, in fact Lucknow, and she mentioned almost laughingly that there were cases of people inappropriately touching her. She brought it up, they just brushed it off, and that's just the attitude that kind of percolates down to the very bottom. And also, like the caller mentioned earlier, it's bad PR for the organization if a case does come out. I think it's an opportunity for great PR and to set a great example if they do take action immediately and they let it be known that something of this nature will not be tolerated. I think from the very onset of your journey in starting an organization or providing employment to people, you must have that attitude that you will not tolerate nonsense against women. Right from putting dustbins in the bathroom so that they can, when they're menstruating, they can throw their sanitary pads conveniently. These are small problems, but it makes them feel welcome at work and it sets the right tone for their journey and their careers. And it's a really sad state right now.
It is a sad state. I want to bring in Mr. Rajan. I saw you put your hand up, Mr. Rajan. Do you believe that offices, like Kashyap pointed out, need to actually, it has to start from having enough bathrooms or enough toilets for the women?
You see, my belief is that there is a lot to be done by the HR people. HR as a department. Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
She's not able to hear it.
I can hear you. Please go ahead.
I'm saying the work of an HR person today has got to be to bring about awareness is one, but also have intelligence through the use of proper employee engagement tools. There are a lot of employee engagement tools which are there, which bring about any such things which are likely to be happening under the table, as you call it, and bring it up even before it becomes a big blown up issue, which is where I think companies need to strengthen their HR team to be more closer to the ground, which is exactly where I think we need to work towards in corporate. And I agree with the young man when he said that there should be zero tolerance. I absolutely agree.
Hey,
any such event which happens should be treated like an example, and it should be completely nipped in the bud. And you know, the person whoever is responsible, like it's happened, somebody has been sacked or somebody has been moved out, and it should be known why he was moved out because of, you know, that will create a deterrent going forward.
Kashyap, go ahead.
Faye, one of the crucial things that will aid in creating a safer workspace for women is if when a woman complains against someone who's a superior, let's say, I think it's very important for other women to not judge, for other women to kind of get together and say, you know, we are here for you, and to just provide the support that they need. It's a mentally traumatic thing, and it's probably much worse than, you know, a mental harassment case where someone is kind of extorting something or bothering you. It's massively humiliating. So when someone comes and supports you in that moment, you get the confidence to, you know, see it through. When a woman complains about sexual harassment against a superior, more often than not, she knows that you know, her career is on the line, and if this does become something big, people are going to see her negatively.
Yeah, so there is that tendency. Yes. There is that tendency among women to assume that they will be taken as troublemakers who cause trouble, who file complaints, who are constantly, you know, popping up on the radar for one thing or the other. So that's why they suppress complaints, and it's so important for managers who receive these complaints to ensure, first of all, confidentiality, that you will not talk, and nobody else will find out about this, that it will be treated with respect and with confidentiality. I want to, Tara, I saw your hand go up, but first I want to bring in Sanjay, who's on the phone line from Jaipur. Sanjay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm there. Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to say, like, the one point which you're missing out on this debate is that as soon as firstly, people are going to be scared to come up with a complaint like this.
Yes.
Because the system is not supporting them. The system is against them because overnight any employee will get terminated as soon as you file a complaint, and all kinds of senior lawyers are going to get after you. Because the corporate sector will have huge lawyers. Once you are terminated, your relationship with the company is broken, and overnight you won't get a job anywhere else because they won't give you a relieving also.
Right. So actually, this is the important thing, and it goes back legally. Flavia Agnes, what happens if there is a woman who files a complaint and she's she's fired because she filed a complaint? Is there any sort of legal remedy for her?
Of course, there is the legal damage. Once a complaint is filed, the management cannot dismiss her from service. She has to be there till the case is over, and that's what the law says. And in case she has been dismissed, immediately she must approach a high court and get an order restraining the company from dismissing her, because once she is dismissed, she is no longer a worker, and the company takes the strength of the fact that she is not a worker, so this law does not apply to her. Now, these are the games that people play. But what I want to bring here, which is most important, that committee, which internal complaints committee, is a quasi-judicial committee. They have to see the complaint in a particular perspective. There are certain rules they have to apply to see whether the complaint is genuine. Now here, if the committee is biased against women, then every woman who comes before the committee will be termed as a liar, as a woman of bad character. So you have to be very careful how the committee conducts itself under the Act, because unless the committee is trained and unless the NGO person who comes in there is properly oriented and has a full knowledge of what that person is supposed to do in the committee, you can just be browbeaten, and the senior management which is there, which sits on the committee, can tarnish this girl in the most inappropriate manner, that she is the one, she is the scheming one, she is a bad character. So not only will she be dismissed, but she will not be employed anywhere else. And I've seen the plight of so many women who have gone through this, that having filed the case, they are today nowhere. And that seems to be the biggest mistake they did, is to file a case of sexual harassment. So unless that situation is remedied, unless there are models, the role models, where a woman went and filed a complaint and the management decided fairly, taking appropriate action and precautions and appreciating the evidence in a correct manner, that she gets justice here. She is not badnaam, she is not shown in a bad light in their report. This is absolutely essential, and there has to be a training or orientation for the committee that sits there, because the women's life is at stake in the hands of these committees, and they are not judicially trained.
Kumar Jahgirdar has his hand up. Kumar Jahgirdar.
And they come with all the biases. This is what we have seen.
Kumar Jahgirdar, go ahead.
In fact, this act has done more damage to women than doing any good, according to my whatever input I get.
Why?
See, the men are in fact totally scared of doing any sorting so whatever the problems the women face in the office. Suppose it's a rainy day, somebody wants a drop. No man is prepared to give a lift also, because they fear that some complaint will come, some misuse of the law.
No, but I'll tell you something, Kumar Jahgirdar. We are quite happy. We're quite happy walking in the rain and not being sexually harassed.
It's not like that.
Than to have a man drop us home in the rain at the price of being sexually harassed.
It's not like that. You go to the numbers and please see the numbers. They're more misuse than the usage of this sort of act.
What are the numbers? Please give me the numbers. What data are you referring to?
The Sexual Harassment Act. It is totally biased in favor of women and against men.
No, but you said go to the numbers, take a look at the numbers. What numbers are you referring to? Please tell me what numbers you have, Kumar Jahgirdar.
There is no gender equality at all.
No. There's no gender equality. No, but what numbers are you referring to, Kumar Jahgirdar?
There is absolutely no protection for men, and there is nobody
is punishing the misuser.
There is no. In fact, somebody wants to get popularity by putting a case on the superior person.
Superior. I'm sorry. What is a superior person?
This thing.
You know, Kumar Jahgirdar, you're making these sweeping statements without offering any explanation. You said, look at the numbers. You don't tell me what numbers these are. Then you're telling me that men need protection. Please tell me what men need protection from. And then you said superior person. Please tell me what a superior person looks like.
Men need protection not only for the harassment at the workplace, but also for people who misuse the act. Where is this thing?
Very clearly. No, I don't understand this.
We go through the social stigma that
no, this is not correct, because there is provisions. How can you say that there is no way? I mean, you can't just have a law and not provisions to penalize somebody who's doing a false case.
Enough misuse in this act, which is not at our fair.
How do you know it is Swapnil Kothari? How does misuse? What does he mean by misuse?
What do you mean by misuse? If you misuse the act, if there is a false complaint,
the women can be protected.
If there is a false complaint, the person who's putting the complaint can be penalized. Provisions are very clear.
How many cases are we seeing this where somebody
it is not correct. You can't make statements like this.
Have we seen any one case in this country where somebody has gone to jail for fighting a false rape case? Nobody has gone. Only the people who have gone to the jail for accused
Kumar Jahgirdar, I will accept what you say when you come to me with data that you claim to have, but you never display. Swapnil Kothari, I take offense to the things that Kumar Jahgirdar said. For first, he said superior people. What are superior people?
Well, I think
superior people are people in important management positions. Superior people. This is exactly the kind of thinking that causes problems.
I think Faye, just as far as to rectify that statement, I think what he meant by superior people is his superiors or her superiors, her bosses, her seniors. That's what he meant. That's one. Now, as far as the other aspect is concerned, which he pointed out, very brazenly, that this particular act is in favor of women and it's completely devoid of gender equality. Let me tell you one thing, Mr. Jahgirdar, that if this act was at all discriminatory the way you've pointed it out, then it would have been constitutionally declared invalid, because every single act that comes into force has to be tested on the touchstone of our constitution and its rights to equality. So and there has not been a single constitutional challenge to a single provision of this act.
It's also there is a bias, gender bias in protection of
let me finish. There is no.
This also is protection for women.
Then the definition of rape itself is gender biased. Let's remove the definition of rape from IPC. Please, let's not talk absurd. Let's not talk absurdity. Please,
that men are all perpetrators of crime.
Please,
I want to bring in. One second. I want to bring in Tara Krishnaswamy. Tara Krishnaswamy, we keep talking about...
I just want to say one thing here.
Yes, Flavia. Yes, Flavia.
Yeah, see, when you have a person like this, it hijacks the entire discussion. You are holding this program to make the people aware what they must do, what is the situation that is prevailing, when the sexually harassed woman comes, what is the remedy. This is for that purpose. Now, if you are having a person like this who hijacks the entire conversation to something else, then the whole purpose of this, having this program is defeated. So my suggestion is next time you have an entire session for this gentleman and let him say whatever he has to say, and then let your program continue as it was planned.
His statements have no meaning. They are devoid of absolute merit. There is no, you know, I mean, you can raise this point.
I understand what you're saying, Flavia Agnes. I understand what you're saying, Flavia Agnes. I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. But let me go across to Tara Krishnaswamy. Tara, we both are fully aware of the fact that there are enough gentlemen in the workspace, including people in my own office who had this conversation with me, saying these regulations are so hard, so strict, that we don't want to work with women anymore. We don't want to be in the same room as women anymore because men see it as some sort of weapon of attack. And this is true. This is something we have to acknowledge because exactly, for your benefit, Mr. Jahgirdar, the men in our workspace have to be educated. They have to be told what is the purpose of this law. They have to be told why it can be used and when it can't be misused. And if there is misuse, the law is very clear, like Indrani pointed out, of what needs to be done. But Tara, this comes from a mindset of the fact that men feel that somehow now the underlings have been given a weapon of, you know, or to defend themselves, and that somehow might
they're actually a weapon of attack. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you nailed it. It's a great segue to what I was going to say, which is lawmakers in our country seem to make laws in isolation. A law is only as effective as it is known. If as a woman, and in this particular case we are discussing this particular law, so I'm taking this example. I don't even know such a law exists. Most women don't know such a law exists. This law is supposed to cover both the formal and informal sector. I challenge you to go to an ordinary place of work, a retail shop, a construction site, a female sales executive, and ask her if she knows such a law exists for her when a genuine issue happens that she is entitled to redressal, to a complaints committee, they are supposed to meet. They have no idea. So the fundamental premise of all this working is A, that people are aware of the law. B, before law, there is a check, and after the law, there's a balance. The check is that in general, there's awareness of the issue itself. The notion that what is acceptable behavior, what is not acceptable behavior in a professional environment when you interact across the two sexes is not at all taught in this country, right? We have anti-cigarette ads. We have ads that tell us, that run before every movie, that say why it's wrong to smoke, what happens when you smoke, why it has an effect on your health, although it's not banned, right? The same way, if there are ads that run, if there's education, indoctrination that happens from when kids are very young as to inappropriate touching, inappropriate verbiage, how to behave towards each other, what is not acceptable, no means no, zero tolerance, then you develop a society of people that recognize what is okay and what is not okay, instead of looking at each other as adversaries and thinking this law exists as a weapon to use against each other, right? The woman is not aware of the law or is misusing the law. The man is not aware of how to treat women in the workplace. Either they are treated as if they are, lower beings.
Tara, I refuse to believe, and this is, I want to bring this up in the TVF case, in various other cases, men turn around and say, it was innocent. I was just making a comment. And when you're making someone uncomfortable. When you're making a sexual advance. And I refuse to accept that men don't know how to treat women in the workplace. You treat them like equals. You treat them like human beings. You treat them with dignity and respect.
You're getting me wrong. It's not like they don't know. They don't know that what they are doing is punishable and wrong. That's indoctrination.
No, you're quite right, Tara.
If I hear every quarter that thou shalt not do something that's not acceptable, that's punishable by law, right? Then I behave a certain way. If I never hear it, if I never hear it, right? And I know inside of myself that it's wrong, then I'm more tempted to, go the extra mile, take leeway, right? So to stretch that envelope. If you see signs posted at every traffic light, you shall not turn when it's red, right? You shall not cut a light. The behavior is a certain way because you sit there and read that sign. If you never read that sign, you're going to be more brazen.
I think in our country, it's also about whether or not there's a policeman standing on the other end of that traffic light who's going to fine you, not just the light and the sign that says don't cut this light. Rajendra is on the phone line from Bangalore.
Which is law enforcement. We don't have law enforcement that is...
Rajendra is on the phone line from Bangalore. Rajendra, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, madam. See, I am in Bangalore. I am living for almost more than 10 years. And I have worked in different companies.
Yes.
First of all, as somebody was referring, HR people, while issuing the appointment order itself, there is no clause mentioned like sexual harassment. They have formed a committee for sexual harassment and other things. Number two, even in government offices, they do not know that such law exists there.
Right. So you're saying, you're making a very good point. The women or nobody in the office knows that this sort of law exists, which is what Tara was saying. So the possible perpetrators don't know they're not supposed to be doing what they're doing, and the victims don't know where they should be going. I just want to bring in one more call. Janet is on the phone line. If I may, Janet is on the phone line from Mumbai. Janet, go ahead.
Hi, Faye.
Hi, good evening.
See, I've already met you and we have spoken on many issues. But today I would like to tell you that the Vishaka guidelines, the committee which has to be formed in every organization, is not formed. And even if it is formed, it is a defunct committee. And I know people from the government, women from the government, who have been sexually harassed by their bosses in return for sexual favors. And they are not at all, and there is no women. Then the most important point what I want to make here is, in this committee, there should be a woman member who is there in this committee who can really hear the grievances of these women.
But there is. Yes, absolutely.
More than one, in fact.
In fact, 3/4 are women, but the most crucial role, I think, is played in such a committee by the external member, because the others are employees of the company. But let me add one thing over here. All companies, when we talked about the HR, and which I think Mr. Rajan also mentioned, that each company by its own regulation is also supposed to incorporate this particular act in their, disciplinary committee, their internal committee, not the sexual harassment committee, but their own.
Right.
Now, and that I have actually drafted for one PSU, where I'm a member, and based on this act, it's a beautifully done document and which covers each and every aspect. I'm not at liberty to say the company or to bring it forward, but such things ought to happen everywhere.
Kashyap?
One other point, Faye, please take in, is the domestic workers who are also included in this workplace issue.
All right,
at some point, you can take that up.
Kashyap.
Faye, I'd firstly like to address the gentleman on the panel who mentioned that women can't travel in the rains. Sir, they're not made of clay. I'm sure they can travel in the rains. Secondly, I think it is because of these preconceived notions of weakness that ignorance kind of seeps in. And within that ignorance, you kind of forget everything else. I would highly advise, and maybe in the future on one of these shows, maybe you can actually show David Schwimmer's series of PSAs where he and I'd advise all viewers to go to YouTube. Check out.
Why don't we make a series of PSAs?
Must. We absolutely must.
I mean, why isn't our film industry or our entertainment industry working on making a series of films that explain these rules to people?
I'm in the process of doing.
Yeah, and Swapnil Kothari, the fact that, and this was quite rightly pointed out by Tara, that laws are made in this country, but unless people know about them, and unless they're strictly enforced, how is the law useful?
Absolutely, and the most important thing here, as Tara pointed out, is the awareness. I think most men who are in the positions of power, especially in the corporate world, are pretty much aware of the laws and are pretty much aware of the simple basic fact, even if they do not know that there is a particular act against this. If at all they do not know, I refuse to believe that. I think most of them they do, that they are not supposed to behave in this manner with a woman. I think they know exactly when they are hitting upon a woman what they are doing. Now, just to point out, one of the important things which Flavia pointed out is that the internal complaints committee works in a is considered to be a quasi-judicial manner. That is, it's supposed to take in the principles of natural justice. If there is a complaint, then the person is supposed to call the person against whom the complaint is made and ask for his rather explanation as to this particular complaint. Now, if that is done, and if that is not done, and if the woman is fired in question as a retaliatory measure, or as a reprisal, that look, you're complaining against this big guy who's a rainmaker, so I think you need to be dispensed or dismissed. I think what she should do is, as Flavia pointed out, approach the High Court and complain about her breach of fundamental right to livelihood, because that is the most important thing. She's lost her job because first of all, it's her right to privacy which has been violated, and then it's the right to her livelihood. So these are the two main fundamental rights which have been breached at the very first instance. So this is something which the women need to take a call on and need to be fighting for their rights. So that is how then they will set up role models and make up people more aware of the law.
Just imagine a domestic worker having to go to High Court.
No, I'm not talking about domestic work. I'm talking of the corporate world. At the moment,
I'm just trying to point out.
I'm not talking of the domestic work.
While Tara makes a very fair point, I think that we have, even the first step of the corporate world or the public sector or the private sector or even, the freelancers, like Kashyap pointed out, just to be able to get the message across to all of these people to begin with would be the first step. And you'd think that it's organized. You think that it would be easy to get this message across. But shockingly, it's not.
There's another aspect to this. At the minimum, just like it's much easier to get the message to the corporate world and the government. What is the WCD doing about making sure every government employee goes through this training, anti-sexual harassment training, is made aware of this, of the do's and don'ts, and at the same time, they can also, it's easier to police the corporates. Why don't we ensure 100% compliance to setting up an internal complaints committee in the first place, right? No, it's much easier to make that happen.
One second, let me just bring Flavia Agnes in. Flavia wanted to say something. Flavia, go ahead.
You have an internal committee.
Flavia, go ahead.
I want to say something about a domestic worker having to go to High Court. I want to say, firstly, she's entitled to legal aid. But apart from that, there are several NGOs that offer all kinds of help, even to a domestic victim of sexual abuse, who works as a domestic worker, because the courts are meant not only for the rich, the courts are meant also for the poor, and there are several times poor have approached the High Court with the help of various NGOs. So we cannot undermine and say how can a sexual domestic worker ever reach the High Court.
No, Flavia, I'm sorry.
And we should not have a negative message out here that if you are a domestic worker, you cannot go.
No, one second. Let me just bring in. We have two people waiting on the phone line. We have two people waiting on the phone line. Sukhmini is on the phone line from New Delhi. Sukhmini.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead, Sukhmini.
I've been just going through the debate, and I have been seeing everyone is giving their,
their view. Yes,
set of their views. But I think, how much are you actually going to cater with this? I mean, there are so many different departments. There's a domestic help. There is somebody at the marketing, somebody in hotels, somebody is elsewhere.
Yes.
I'm just trying to understand is, sexual harassment is vast. How is it going to be treated, and how can a woman be helped? It's a big subject. I mean, I'm glad I'm watching this right now in front of me, and I'm a part of it. But I just like to share a very small personal experience. I'm an ex-hotelier, worked with one of the leading properties. I went through an episode of such kind. But believe me, the HR there was so strong that they helped me out with that. And and whosoever, was, whom I had actually gone to complain for, was, I think, spoken about or something. And I never faced anything of that. But maybe I was lucky. I got lucky.
You were very lucky. You were very lucky. Unfortunately, we ran out of time on this discussion. But like Flavia Agnes pointed out, these are discussions we should have on a regular basis because we are able to have through these discussions a wider audience, and we are able to bring to a lot of people's attention that this sort of a rule exists and you can go ahead and complain. Remember, if an organization has 10 or more employees, it is required by law to set up an internal complaints committee. If you are an employee of an organization, you can go up to either your manager or the complaints committee and you can complain about sexual harassment. Half of those committee members should be women. The committee needs to take action on that complaint in 90 days. The committee has to investigate and take action. Like Indrani pointed out, the committee will decide whether there is a true claim, if it's a complaint, what action should be taken. They will recommend to the organization. Remember also, they have to be members of the committee who are not employees of the organization, who are external members who come in by their qualification to give their point of view. Remember, for the women who are watching, anything that makes you uncomfortable, physical contact, comments, jokes, messages sent on WhatsApp, sexual advances, someone who touches you, says things to you, comes too close to you, if you've made it yourself clear that I do not welcome this, I am not happy with this, please stop, and the person persists, that is sexual harassment. You are fully within your rights and within the law to complain about it. If you do not get justice from your organization, please approach the police. The law is on your side and you are not alone. If you need help, my contact details are on your screen right now. Get in touch and we will put you in touch with someone who can help you out. This conversation will continue. Thanks for watching.